So start of the year, January 2023, you have a lot of people that are switching jobs. So that's no different in the franchise industry, and it's everywhere from the top to the bottom. We've noticed that there's been some top executives, we're talking about CEOs, presidents of very established brands that are leaving, sometimes even smaller brands. And that's a bit of a red flag when you look at the franchise brand that they're leaving. If they're moving on to something that's a much smaller concept, it's kind of a red flag and warning sign that you might want to look further into the brand if you're considering investing in that business. So a lot of the big restaurants, including Applebees, were hit hard by high food costs, labor shortages, the pandemic. Obviously, all these things have made it difficult to run a restaurant, especially a full service restaurant like Applebees. So the first executive to leave beginning of January, President John Sawinski, was the CEO of Applebees, has left an undisclosed restaurant chain. Applebees has struggled to recruit new franchisees and encourage development of new restaurants for current franchisees. Applebee's, though, was struggling prior to the pandemic. They can't blame it on the pandemic. Like, you had one franchisee out of Times Square that owes the landlord $7 million and was blaming everything on the pandemic. Yes, obviously the pandemic was part of it, but Applebee's was a struggling brand even before the pandemic set in. They had a net decrease of 28 restaurants in 2019, and that only shot up during the pandemic. At Vetted Biz, we estimate the payback period for a new Applebee's restaurant to be over 13 years. With emerging restaurant brands offering a 3 to 5 year payback period, it's a tough sell for restaurant operators that tend to be high net worth individuals or even private equity funds. It's a tough sell for them to sign up for Applebee's, and I'm sure John and his team felt that under his command. Again, doesn't help the negative press where you have the Applebee's in Times Square all over the press that they owe $7 million to the landlord. Had a lot of negative press about the Applebee's brand in 2022. Sawinski's replacement's Tony Morealejo most recently served as international and global development for Applebee's parent company, Dine Brands, that also owns IHOP. And I imagine Tony has his work cut out for him in 2023. Roark Capital's portfolio company, Focus Brands, lost their president, Beto Guajardo. Beto left the group for Blaze Pizza. Many of the Focus brands have been really stagnant over the last 6-7 years with minimal U.S. growth. Net change of Carvel, for example, they lost 6 units. Auntie Anne's lost 9 units. Moe's Southwest Grill added 25 units. Keep in mind, there's been a lot of closures and there's been a lot of openings with those brands, but there's been a net loss over the last 6 or 7 years, which is not good for a franchise system. Meanwhile, over the past 7 years, Blaze Pizza, it's a small system, just about 300 pizzerias, but they added 200 locations across the United States and increased their average sales to over $1 million, where a lot of the Focus brands, their average unit volume has been decreasing, and they're doing a lot of efforts in terms of co-branding and adding Carvel's with a Cinnabon or Auntie Anne's with a Cinnabon. We'll see if that pans out. Talking to franchisees in the past, co-branding largely hasn't been a big success, but we'll be tracking that at Vetted Biz, as well as what other executives are doing, leaving the C-suite to move in with emerging concepts or mainstay franchises.